From September 3rd through October 15th, hundreds of people turned out to learn about how water has helped shape the lives of everyone in Lawrence County, Illinois. Visitors were as young as 6 weeks, as old as in their 90s, and they came from as far away as Finland and Australia. History came alive for those who viewed everything from a mastodon bone to nostalgic old photographs of Lake Lawrence. This local exhibit and a 650-square-foot traveling exhibit were made possible by the Smithsonian's Museum on Main Street project and by Illinois Humanities. For 6 weeks, it certainly was the talk of the town.
Anytime you're got something to do with the Smithsonian, it's a big thing for a town our size.
Oh yes, I've talked to quite a few people, and it's just amazing that a little city like Lawrenceville, Illinois, can have something like this. I think we ought to be proud of it. I know I am. It's just a great exhibit, and I think it'll open a lot of people's eyes on the history of Lawrence County.
Water is so intertwined in our local lives, and the impacts of flooding and the water wars of this county between our municipalities, and the water issues on farming and the drainage, the flooding, the mussel industry, the pearl fishing, the steamboating on the rivers. It just goes on and on. We actually got the grant. One of only 6 sites in the state of Illinois to be awarded this traveling exhibit from the Smithsonian Museum on Main Street program, administered in Illinois by the Illinois Humanities. So we're very proud to be one of the 6 chosen.
I think I thought we'll never get it. But to our surprise, we did, and then we were thrilled. We were honored. And with that, I had no idea how much work it would be involved. But we were very excited and got started, and it just evolved from there.
Hi, I'm Donna Burton. On behalf of myself, John and Nancy King, and Kay Fisher, we would just like to thank the Smithsonian and Illinois Humanities for having faith in our organization. We've truly appreciated the opportunity to exhibit Waterways, the newest Smithsonian Traveling Exhibit. 1 year ago, when we were asked to apply to host the Smithsonian Traveling Exhibit, we did so with some hesitancy. We are an all-volunteer group, and we wondered if we would be able to make them proud. When we were notified that we had been accepted, we were speechless.
I think that was the reaction. Okay, water, how is that, what's that got to do with history, you know? But when you dig into that, you find out that, well, for over a century, as far back as old Frederick Jackson Turner's Frontier thesis, historians have recognized the role that geography and environment has played in the development of our country. And today, environmental history is at the forefront of scholarship as historians, explore how human activities have impacted the environment.
1, 2, 3. By the time the ribbon cutting took place at 12th and Jefferson on a beautiful Friday afternoon, volunteers had pitched in thousands of hours. They'd consulted with Smithsonian and Illinois Humanities experts about creating and installing memorable exhibits. The building had been transformed from a blank canvas to an interactive display of national and global water concerns. 5 other Illinois cities were part of the Smithsonian tour: Franklin Grove, Mahomet, Valmeyer, Carbondale, and Shanahan. Many volunteers brought their special skills and interests, including little-known ties to some historical figures who spent time near the waters of Lawrence County. Paul Umfleet presented a program on John James Audubon.
6 months ago, Donna Burton talked to me. I'm a wood carver, but I did mention that one of my big passions and hobby is Audubon. I collect his paintings. I even make carved birds that are posed as he posed them in his collection. And I said, did you know that Audubon was in this area during his stay in Henderson? He was in Henderson for 10 years, but he was often in Illinois and Vincennes and doing business. As part of the Waterways exhibit, they do have an exhibit with some of my birds and some of my information about Audubon.
It's really been a lot of fun being involved with this Waterways project. And I've been with them from day one as far as helping in any way. Oh, wow, water. I began to understand how important water is. Number one, I didn't realize how much water related to us day to day. We're around water all the time. We just take it for granted. So I learned so many different aspects about water. It's mind-boggling. I really believe it's going to be a hit for Lawrence County. Oh, it's great for the community, all ages. And everyone's affected by water, and it's so interesting. And it gives us an understanding, no matter how old you are, we'll learn something from all of these exhibits. A lot of lifting, moving, things like that. But as far as the main crew, Donna Burton and her crew are the crux behind the whole thing. And it's just, Donna, I call her the general. I call her the general because she's a great person to work for. She knows how to get things done, and that makes it easier on our part. I was with a four-man crew that went to Champaign area, and we hauled the crates from Champaign to Lawrenceville. That was kind of interesting. We had no problems. Unloading the crates and taking the exhibits out of the crates that was kind of a job because there's so many parts and pieces to these exhibits. And normally it takes 4 hours. This time it took us almost 8 hours.
And it's been over a year, a lot of planning, and then a lot of work. So I was involved on going to get the Smithsonian thing at Mahomet and bringing it down, constructing it, and I've helped out with various projects here, displays. A lot of physical labor. The backdrops we have here are just about as high as the ceiling. So we had to take some ceiling tile out to get them to fit, and we found a way to make it work. And getting things situated and in the right size and things, it was a lot of work by a lot of people.
One of the first things to greet guests in the local display, an enormous timeline showcasing the county's many flood events.
Of course, there's always challenges when you put an exhibit together of this size. Then it was researching the local history to find out how water could be illustrated in these exhibits. And it was just a matter of kind of going through our own collection. Okay, I guess the first thing that would pop into your mind would be the flooding here in Lawrence County. So we kind of started from there. Then somebody would say, hey, you remember Stiver Springs over at Bridgeport? And that's the way it was. It was just people just talking about it, and one thing would lead to another.
Some volunteers had vivid memories of a once rowdy and lucrative river activity, pearl fishing. Musician Dennis Stromat from Albion, Illinois, entertained during the Waterways event with some rousing river music. Lively and bawdy tunes that would have been popular during the height of the pearl fishing bonanza.
I always knew about the pearl fishing, but that really fascinates me. I grew up in Vincennes, right across the Wabash, and as a little kid, I was all the time at the river. And there were the guys in the boats getting the mussels and everything. I really didn't know that much about it. All I really remember is that my mom and dad did not like for me to talk to those guys because they were kind of a salty bunch. But as a 7-8-year-old, you kind of, that didn't mean much. And I noticed that the shells out there with all the holes punched in them, I saw those by the thousands when I was a kid. I didn't know what they were. I wished I'd have collected them then.
My favorite exhibit to work on overall was the first one I wanted to dive into was the pearl and button industry. That just intrigued me. I was interested in it. I was interested in doing the research. Probably the most difficult thing I encountered was trying to get to the point I could start putting things together. We had ideas from the beginning. We had a lot of things gathered, but if you don't have everything, it's hard to put the exhibit together. Because I was a teacher in a small school where we had very limited budgets. So I was used to making things out of nothing, but But it was very difficult, and we would get started one day and then we'd realize, well, we don't have that tape we need. I have to run and get that, and we couldn't find it locally. So it was trips to Evansville, trips to Terre Haute. It made it difficult, but we muddled through. We are very fortunate to have a wonderful group of volunteers that at least we'll try. We may not do it perfect, but we will give it a shot. We'll try.
The team tracked down an old film, the story of Wabash pearl fishing, about an industry now banned because of overfishing. This 25-minute film was produced by the state of Indiana and tells the story of the pearls from interviews with local mussel fishermen, jewelers, and shell dealers. Pearls even played a part in the courts of England and Russia. Creativity and resourcefulness also played a part in the recreation of a half-century-old film on the making of Red Hills Lake at Bridgeport's Red Hills State Park. This 17-minute film was produced by the state of Illinois in the 1950s. No one had any idea what it looked like because there was no way to play it. It was sitting in the Society's archival vault in a metal 8mm film canister. Brian Straub drove the film to Cincinnati to have it digitized. And because it had no sound, narration and some lively sound effects were added. Throughout the year of preparation, volunteers pitched in to do whatever was needed, whether it was electrical work, movie producing, or running to the store for glue, string, or miniature farm implements. Local radio, TV, and newspapers kept up the anticipation for the community by reporting on milestones reached along the way.
I've been in other organizations, and my wife is in organizations, and it's a constant fight to get any people to do anything. Doesn't seem like that here. We have real workers.
Our volunteers are wonderful. We have been able, in the last few years, to build a tremendous organization, membership, volunteers. When we need something done, the volunteers are there to do it. When we need the money for some project, somehow it gets raised and we can do wonderful things. It's truly a blessing.
The project also opened everyone's eyes to fascinating water-related discoveries in their own backyards.
The mastodon tusk, I did not know we had mastodon around here. And to find one in Lawrence County, I thought was a great find. And I talked to the guy that found it, and it was just chance that he found it. It was in the hill. He was spraying water on a hill for a gravel pit. Noticed something up there, and thankfully he shut his equipment down, went and dug it out, or it would have got in the equipment and been crushed.
The things that really impressed me were some of the local things about water. Driving on the levee with Norman Coker, I was exposed to totally new concepts. Boils, cribbing, things that I'd never heard of, and I'd lived here in Lawrence County most of my life. Other issues that even relate to farming, I had been exposed to more as a farm wife, but I even learned new ideas and new concepts about farming that I wasn't as aware of as I should have been.
Well, I hope people realize how a valuable commodity water is, and how lucky we are to have good potable water. Everybody doesn't have it. Good, clean drinking water, washing, whatever you use it for. It's very important. You can't live without it. We probably have something as good as gold underneath us. And so we're pretty impressed with water. We know how valuable it is, and our economy around here depends on the water.
Several different generations remember some frightening and dramatic stories dealing with floods.
I lived in Pinkstaff when we had the flood, and my dad had worked in Vincennes, and he had to drive all the way down to Mont Carmel and get to Vincennes to go to work. And then I can remember driving across after the floods went down, I can remember driving across the highway from here to Vincennes, you know, and just looking out and seeing nothing but water. And that was just what was amazing.
Sharing the exhibit with young people has been both satisfying and a good investment in the future.
I look forward to all the groups of school kids we'll be bringing through in the next 2 weeks. I think it's getting out of the classroom and it's the excitement of that it's something different. It's not the routine day. It's going to be something special.
The Historical Society got an additional grant from the Smithsonian, one of only 6 in the nation, so that area teenagers could produce several videos about flooding in Lawrence County. The interaction of generations was a winning combination.
I taught high school science, mostly biology, for 38 years. I did a lot of work in my advanced class with rivers and spent a lot of time in the rivers doing a lot of river testing, took kids on lots of field trips. So I agreed to do it and helped them acquire some technology teachers to do it. From Lawrenceville is Katie Kaiser, and Red Hill is Tammy Parker. Kids loved being with the older people. And I sat in on one at Red Hill, and he was 90, I believe. And I sat back and I got the biggest kick out of listening to him tell stories.
The school teacher that I remembered so well, I wanted to tell you about her. Her name was Mrs. Creighton, and she was probably the loveliest teacher I ever had in grade school. She was tall and elegant and wore her hair in a bun, and it was just the most refined lady. And so when it was determined that they would have to close the school down or do something if the teachers couldn't get there, so my parents said to her, well, you can stay at our house. So she moved into our home for probably, it seems like it was at least 2 or 3 weeks, but that was a really big deal to me. That's my biggest memory of the flood, was having my school teacher come and stay with us.
Having the Youth Access Grant awarded to us was even an additional, but to be able to involve the local students to go out and interview some of our folks who remember the flooding incidents and give them a chance to tell their stories. History tends to die with us, and we've got to get our stories out and recorded, and this is a continuing challenge. And how do you do this, that these stories may be preserved for people 50, 100, 200 years from now? So it's wonderful, and of course the work involved in making this happen is overwhelming.
The local exhibit was a multimedia extravaganza. Besides the movies and physical structures, there was an old-fashioned book, Water, Water Everywhere, How Water Shaped Our Lives. Hundreds of photographs from floods and fishing to a 19th century resort and spa known as Stivers Springs. The book examined how water shaped our landscapes, the way we settled, traveled, the way we made our fortunes, and the way we played and lived. From the startling fact that 1/3 of Lawrence County floods on a regular basis, to fascinating newspaper accounts of our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, surviving a harrowing flood in the county, to unsolved mysteries of breached levees. There are accounts of how waterways played a part in the Underground Railroad for slaves seeking freedom, and journal entries from the hundreds of steamboats that docked at Vincennes. There are also heartbreaking accounts of how a lack of water in Bridgeport resulted in an out-of-control fire that gutted the downtown in 1913. There were also field trips to some of Lawrence County and the region's legendary waterways, from levees to a sneak peek at the glorious return of bald eagles to the banks of the Wabash. Organizers have been touched by the reactions of visitors.
Lots of people have been complimentary, and they're people that I think they weren't just saying it to make us feel good. They were really appreciative of what we've done for the community. Then we've had comments from some of the children that have asked really thought-provoking questions, and I thought, oh, that's wonderful. That was our goal, is to intrigue them to think. Then we've had questions like, back in the theater today, the one the little girl said, is there popcorn?
I hope that the success of this exhibit tells our Lawrence County community that the Lawrence County Historical Society, we're here, we can do wonderful things. We're here to collect the history, to help preserve the history, to tell the history, and it is a community effort.
We hope that through this exhibit people are going to learn about the role of environment in history, But we also hope that a byproduct of this is people are just going to become more aware of our organization. We have reached out to all the local units of government, the county, the cities in the county. We've reached out to water districts, to levee districts, to drainage districts. I mean, all that has to do with water, and they've helped a lot in this.
A year ago, we were asked to host the Smithsonian Traveling Exhibit, the newest one, Waterways. We were very excited, and we filled out the application, and our first line was 1/3 of Lawrence County floods on a regular basis. We were then very excited and overwhelmed and humbled that Lawrence County would be chosen. In the year that we have worked on this project, we have learned so much about our organization. We've learned so much about the history of our county and how water affected it. We've formed very strong bonds between the members of the organization, the business people, the school teachers, many organizations. We had the complete support of the community at all times. The opportunity that the Smithsonian and Illinois Humanities provided us with was priceless. We learned from our consultants how to put together exhibits, how to narrate exhibits, how to become docents. We wrote more press releases, gave more talks than we ever thought we could. All the things the Smithsonian said it would do for us, it did. We grew as an organization, and we are ready to take on the next challenge.